Hey guys, Stefan Fischer here from All Off Road. I hope you guys are well. In today's video I want to give you a quick overview of my new battery system which I have in the car. If you follow my channel you know that I didn't have much luck with the DCS LiFePo4 batteries under the bonnet. So I removed them in August this year. Unfortunately everything had to go fairly quick because I had a new trip coming up and there wasn't much time. So my decision at the time was that I wouldn't run LiFePo4 under the bonnet anymore, but that I would run a LiFePo4 battery in the rear of the car so that that could be a dependable and longer lasting solution. But I needed to find a LiFePo4 battery fairly quickly which suited my space and my requirements. I narrowed it down to 3 batteries. One was another Revolution which I had tried before. And yeah, good quality battery, but a little bit on the low side in regards to specs. So I did a little bit of research on the quick, and when coming back from Germany, I found an email in my mailbox from Redarc telling me about the new Redarc Alpha 150 battery. To my surprise, that was actually not a development from Redarc, but it was a co-development with Super B. Let me give you a quick overview of the setup, what I have now. The 2 DCS batteries under the bonnet were replaced by Energizer EFB batteries that are lead acid batteries but meant for start-stop applications, and they are pretty robust and last supposedly longer than a standard lead acid battery. So that is something Joe from JS Auto Electrics recommended, and looking into it, that seems to be a pretty good solution. I then also replaced my old projector inverter, which was only a 300 watt inverter. It was tucked into one of my rear side panels of the Land Cruiser, so that was due for replacement. I still had a 700 watt Redarc inverter in the garage, but I simply didn't know where to place it until Joe came up with a great location behind my fridge, and that's where now the Redarc 700 watt inverter is placed. I also still had a Redarc BCDC 1250D with a new lithium profile, so we installed that to charge the Redarc Super B Alpha 150 150 amp hour LiFePo4 battery. We did not install a separate low voltage disconnect because Redarc Alpha 150 has a programmable low voltage disconnect built into the battery. I mean, ideally I would love to have a 2000 watt inverter in the car so that I could run my induction cooker from the car, but I simply have no space for it. So what I'm doing now, if I want to do induction cooking, I take my EcoFlow Delta 2 with me and then charge that via the Redarc 700 watt inverter, and that works quite well for me. So now I've got the inverter switched on via the remote switch here, and now I'm recharging my EcoFlow, which allows me to work independently from the car and just set up wherever I want. So that now works perfect. Mind you, I'm obviously drawing quite a bit of juice out of here now. However, this whole setup is obviously centered around my new LiFePo4 auxiliary battery, which I went with the Redarc Super B Alpha 150. So let's now go into a bit more detail about the Alpha 150, the pros and cons, and how I find it so far. I just returned from Germany, and funnily enough I spoke with some of my friends who work in the automotive industry about Super B batteries, because it's pretty much the premium LiFePo4 manufacturer in Europe. They have a big factory in the Netherlands, so all the batteries are made in the Netherlands, and they are in Europe for I think over 14 years. So when I saw Redarc Alpha 150 together with Super B, that sounded very interesting. And when I looked closer into the battery, it sounded like perfectly made for my user case and for my vehicle. So while this is obviously not a review, I only had the battery in now for 4 months, but I've already used it on a desert trip. I used it on a high country trip, which I'm actually right here now. So I thought I tell you a little bit about the battery, and the full detailed review will come in a year's time. So what made me choose the Redarc Super B Alpha 150? Number one, the form factor is pretty much the form factor of a regular 100 amp hour LiFePo4 battery, and that fits perfectly behind my seat where I used to have my Revolution battery. Number two, spec wise, I think it's probably the best battery out there from any of the big reputable manufacturers. So you have 150 amp hour usable capacity in a regular size battery box. You have 200 amp continuous discharge current, so would be no problem running a 2000 watt inverter and running your induction cooker or the likes. You have 135 amp continuous charging current. It has a built-in heating system, to be honest, which I probably don't really need where I live. But it can come in handy, for example, if you would spend a week or so in the Victorian high country and you continuously have below zero temperatures, built-in heating certainly would be a benefit. The battery has a cycle rating of 5,000 cycles down to 100% depth of discharge. So that is just brilliant. It means it probably outlasts my Land Cruiser. It is IP56 dust and water protected. No big deal for me where it's located in the back of the car, but again, it's good to have, I guess, especially in regards to dust. At least I don't have that issue here. It has a Bluetooth app and Bluetooth connectivity. The battery has a programmable low voltage disconnect, so I don't have any other low voltage disconnect in between. I just have set my battery to 10%. And yeah, when it reaches 10%, it pretty much cuts everything off. So that is great because you can't really deep drain your battery if you set it to say 5 or 10%. The battery has an active cell balancing and automotive grade LiFePo4 prismatic battery packs. The battery is also future proof because, for example, you can easily update the firmware via the app. I already did that, and it also has a lot of ports, for example, like a CAN bus port and a few other auxiliary ports which personally I don't use, and with my old vehicle probably won't do much, but I think there's a lot of options for connectivity and applications if you have a more modern car. Super B is in Europe the premium high-end LiFePo4 manufacturer. They manufacture for the automotive industry. They manufacture in the Netherlands for a lot of the boats which run in the channels there. Yeah, they do a lot of stuff and are very, very well regarded. And obviously I really wanted something which was properly researched. And obviously it's not just Super B. Redarc would have done all their internal testing before they decided partnering with Super B. For full disclosure, I contacted 3 lithium manufacturers, and all 3 were happy to provide me one of the batteries for review and testing purposes. But I did settle on the Redarc Super B Alpha 150 because it was just the best battery for my application. Yeah, just a few of the pros beside obviously all the features. The battery has 2 good and sturdy handles, and they actually fold down and then protect the terminals. I think that's a neat little feature. And it means you can carry the battery even in a year or 2 or 3 years time, which I wasn't that successful with other batteries where the handles ripped and broke. Yeah, it will be very hard to put the Redarc Alpha 150 into really deep sleep that you can't wake it up anymore because you have the low voltage disconnect built into that battery. So with the Redarc I can set the low voltage disconnect, and then also there is no special procedure needed to wake it up again. Any kind of charge current which goes back in, and I tested that, will wake up the battery again, and yeah, no issues there. Yeah, are there any issues with the changed setup? No, the battery does exactly what I expected to do, so no issues there. The only one thing I'm currently still toying and playing around with is charging. I mean, one of the great benefits of having the LiFePo4 under the bonnet was the direct alternator charging, and that meant my batteries recharge in a flash. But here now I'm in the Victorian High Country. We're camping here 2 nights at the Wanagata station, and the weather is pretty average. Actually at the moment it's beautiful, but we have rain, we have cloud cover, so it's changing all the time. And I'm just barely managing to scrape by with my 150 watt solar blanket which I have on the window, and my Redarc 80 watt glass panel which I have permanently on the car. But I couldn't charge, for example, my EcoFlow Delta now at the same time, which I use for my induction cooking. Yeah, so coming back, I noticed that the Redarc BCDC 1250D, which I still had lying at home, does not really provide the 50 amp output for a very long time, unless you have it maybe mounted right behind the radiator grill and you driving at a reasonable speed and have a lot of driving wind coming through. I had it initially mounted at the bottom of my seat base next to the battery box. It still had room around it, but the Redarc will derate after around 20 minutes to around 40 amp, and then a little bit further down to 30 amp, where it then stays. We relocated now the Redarc a bit higher up on the cargo barrier, but even there I have the same issue. It's not if the battery is nearly empty and I gonna drive for 3 hours, I get 150 amp hour back in, and that is something I don't like. I haven't decided now what I'm doing. I'm toying with a few solutions, maybe putting a little fan on top of the Redarc inverter. I got to test where that makes a difference. The other option would be adding another, say, BCDC 1225, and that may be actually best option. So I have 2 of the Redarc DC-DC chargers, and that means I get in 75 amp peak, and then hopefully the 25 amp BCDC can put out 25 amp continuously. The 50 amp will derate to around 30, and that means I get 55 amp continuous. So that may be a good solution. Or the third solution is to go to different BCDC charger, for example like the Enerdrive. They have a built-in fan and supposedly can provide the output a bit longer. But again, everything has pros and cons. If the fan then, for example, fails because I do a lot of desert driving, there's a lot of dust in the car, that's obviously not really that good for a fan. If that fails, I may get nothing. So that is something I still have to experiment a bit with, and I will let you know in the full review of the battery system what I came up with, what I tested and what works for me. I also have to give a very big shout out to Joe from JS Auto Electrics. He is my trusted auto electrician, and I'm working together with him now for over 5 years, and the amount of testing and hassle he has been through with me, especially with the DCS batteries, I really can't recommend him high enough, especially if you live in the Sydney area. Also with this setup, he swapped everything over within a week's notice so that I could attend the next trip which I had planned after my return from Germany. So let me give you a few impressions where I have used the battery and under what kind of conditions. The last desert trip, for example, we had well over 40 degrees, and yeah, the battery worked without any issues. there will be some comments, but you could have built your own battery, or you could have gone to one of that companies who custom built lithium batteries. But to be honest, I didn't even look into them. I didn't approach them for the simple fact I now wanted something which is proven, which is well tested, which has a big company with good reputation behind it, and which very likely can remain in my car as long as I have that car. And that are the reasons why I didn't go with any of the smaller manufacturers who can build one. Yeah, price-wise, the Redarc Super B Alpha 150 is not the cheapest battery on the market, that's for sure, but none of the Redarc gear is. But in comparison to previous Redarc LiFePo4 batteries, I think this one is actually much better priced, especially for what it can do. So if you're super budget conscious, the Redarc batteries or the Redarc gear will probably never be the right thing for you. But if you want to have the best gear, if you want to have a battery which is very well researched, which is manufactured not in China but in the Netherlands by a company who is over 14 years in the industry and has a stellar reputation in Europe. Yeah, I don't think there's any battery from any of the big commercial manufacturers, I'm not talking about something built in someone's garage, which could match this battery feature-wise and what it can do. Yeah, my conclusion so far is I'm super happy with that battery. Obviously all the features, 5000 cycles to 100% depth of discharge, the 200 amp continuous power output, the 135 amp continuous charging input, the Bluetooth connectivity, the app which allows firmware updates over Bluetooth, the programmable low voltage disconnect. Yeah, I think are just brilliant features, and in my book so far are worth the money. But obviously I'm gonna keep you posted, and I will continue posting updates, say on a yearly basis, and tell you how the battery is going. Yeah guys, that's the end of this video. As I mentioned, this was not a review, I rather gave you an overview of my new battery setup, and obviously I will keep you posted over the next few years and tell you how the setup performs and whether I run into any issues. So if this video was valuable to you, I would greatly appreciate if you could share, like, subscribe, and if you can afford, please consider to head over to Patreon or buy me a coffee, and with the equivalent of a cup of coffee or two per month, you can really help me creating these videos. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you along the tracks.